Welcome to Jets Rewind. This is Marty Shupak. I'm in Valley Cottage, New York. I'm joined by my two good friends and co-hosts, Ray Clifford, who's out in Marysville, Ohio, Ralph Sharega, who's in Belmont, Mass. And we are about 24 hours from the draft, which all Jet fans, if you listen to them, it's like they won the Super Bowl already.
Well, it is our Super Bowl every year. And this year we finally won it.
It's either us or Baltimore or Philly.
Well,
a lot of teams had good because a lot of teams had multiple firsts.
Yeah.
Giants draft was really good.
I guess we can't put the Patriots up there, huh? Somebody called in the talk show and said they swear Belichick is sabotaging the organization for some reason.
Because when he leaves, they'll be terrible and they'll go, Bill, he was the best. Nobody can replace him.
All right.
Bill will go down to Tampa and take over down.
Well, they picked a quarterback. This kid from Western Kentucky, I think, broke all Mike White's records.
Very productive.
Bailey Zapp. He's not bad.
Broke all of Burrow's records.
Yeah. Let me read the picks. All Jet fans have heard a million times. Number one, 4 overall, Sauce Gardner, cornerback, Cincinnati. Number one, first round, 10th overall, Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State. They moved back in, and in the 26th pick, first round, Jermaine Johnson, the edge from Florida State. And then their first pick, they moved up in the second round, number 36, Breece Hall, the running back, gifted running back from Iowa State. Third round, 101 overall, from Lindenhurst, Long Island, Jeremy Ruckett, tight end from Ohio State. And in the fourth round, number 111 overall, Max Mitchell, offensive tackle, Louisiana. And our last pick in the fourth round, number 117 overall, Michael Clemens, in edge, pass rusher, Texas A&M. I actually find him very interesting too, guys. He's older, but we'll get into that in a minute.
They got, a lot of their free agent signings are 24 and 25. That it seems to be a pattern this year.
Yeah, so I'd like a quick reaction from each of you, and then we'll get into each play in depth. Ralph, why don't you start, and then Ray, you'll give us your 2 cents.
Well, I don't know how you can't like this as a Jet fan. I mean, I've been following their drafts for how many, 50 years, and I never had so much fun and satisfaction with a draft. I think Douglas did a great job, and I think there was a little luck involved with both Johnson and Breece Hall. He was actually going to trade back into the first to get Breece Hall, which would have been another 4 pick for the Jets, the only team to ever do it the one time. And in both cases, those guys fell. And the more film I watch of Breece Hall, the more I love this guy. He is much better than I realized. He's an electric player. It's funny when you're doing like when their third round pick was coming up, I was thinking Channing Tindall. And when they picked Rucker, that always bums me out because and especially because Tindall went on the next pick. So now we're going to have to watch him, Ray, next year, like Trey Smith, and keep an eye on him. But Rucker's a nice player. He's a good football player. It's just that, but I just, I didn't feel like, I felt like they should go for a need that was more urgent. But I'm sure down the line, he's going to be excellent.
Right. And don't forget, Ralph, the way the Jets and Joe Douglas structure these free agent contracts, they're really not that long. They're like 1, 2, or 3 years. And I'm not sure if the Jets have the option or whatever, but a lot of these free agent contracts are
true.
Quick.
I don't know what the specifics are on those two guys.
But, I don't either. The two tight ends too, but we'll have to see. And Ralph, what were your thoughts about the last 2 picks? Anything on Max Mitchell and Michael Clemens?
Well, I was very excited. Mitchell was one of the guys I was looking at when their pick was coming up. I really wanted them to get some offensive line depth, so I'm very pleased with that pick. And the other guy, I was not on my radar. I have to admit, I did not know anything about him. He's an interesting guy. He's an intimidating guy. I don't know if you've seen interviews with him. I saw his last game as a collegian was against LSU. He got 4 sacks in that game, and they lost the game like in the last seconds. And he's showing a press conference with him afterwards because he had such a great game. And boy, is he in a surly mood.
really?
Really, it was like, because he was pissed because they lost the game, which is a good sign,
It's
because he
good.
had a great game and
Yeah.
didn't matter.
I like that.
Uh,
Ralph, did they play Alabama?
yes, I believe
Yeah.
they did. Yeah. They beat Alabama.
Beat
Yeah, they beat
Alabama.
Alabama this year. Yeah.
Because
Yeah. And I
I-
saw he did some good stuff in that
Well,
game.
I'll tell you why. I heard another one of the experts saying he was watching that game to scout his teammate. What's his name? Neil.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, he kept seeing this guy like shooting in
Yeah.
there. And he said he thought Clemens was the best player on the field in that game.
Yeah, he had some nice plays in that game. I remember watching clips.
Yeah. Now he has some baggage off the field
Yeah.
and he's 25 years old. I'm just curious, Ray, if this guy was 22 and he was clean, you think he would have been a 4th-round pick?
No, you know.
No, but I don't know that he would have shot up real high, but he probably would have gone up at least a round, maybe 2. I don't think he would have been a 1st rounder, but because I mean, he plays well, but he has some deficiencies, at least what I was reading about him. Because I didn't start reading about him till he was drafted either, Ralph. So I wasn't sure a lot about him, but what I read, he's got some limitations, but I think, that definitely played a part in how far he dropped.
Don't forget, Robert Saleh doesn't like playing guys up front on defense like more than 60% of the plays for going into a whole year. He's such a big believer in the rotating the players. Ray, what are your thoughts? Any quick thoughts on the other players?
On
The Jets drafted?
Just in general, or the last 2?
In general. Gardner.
Well, like everybody else, I think that was a great draft. I mean, I don't know if I would have gone for Gardner or one of the 2 tackles, but I had no problem with him going for Gardner because he definitely wasn't going to be around at 10. So if that's who they were high on, I'm all for it. I had no issues with that. I remember when we did our mock, I wasn't big on Johnson at 10, but boy, at 26, I was, I couldn't believe he was still there. And I think I started around the time they said they were trying to trade up, which, we don't know that, but I'm going, why aren't you trying to get up here and get the guy now? Right. And then they said they had been trying since pick 15, I think they said, or so, to try and trade up. And he was still there by 26. I think that was, as far as I'm concerned, that was the biggest steal of the draft, because there was nothing, there were no injuries or anything that pushed him down. Why he dropped that far, I don't know, but man, am I thankful. As far as the last, the end of the draft, I loved everything.
What about Breece Hall? How'd you like?
I'm same as Ralph, and I saw him play a couple times. I liked him, but I didn't see him every week. I wasn't paying attention to him, but boy, he's I think a great fit for our offense. So him and I think Jeremy Ruckert's going to turn into more than people realize, because on Ohio State, they didn't need him to be a receiver so much, but he's actually a pretty good receiver too. He's not just a blocker. So I think with time, he's going to turn out to be a anchor for that offense. So I thought that was a really good pick too. I have no problem with any of that. The last 2, I don't have a problem with them. But personally, I would have liked to seen them maybe try and trade up and grab somebody. And I had somebody in mind I'll ask you guys about later. But the Max Mitchell depth, I don't think I don't think he'll ever be like a starter, not a full-time starter, unless we have a bunch of injuries. But Clemens, he looks like he's got some potential to be a good part of the rotation on the defense. So I thought that was a decent pick too.
Okay. I feel the same way like all Jet fans. And if you look at it, their first 4 picks, 3 of them, and some people even had the 4th, Jermaine Johnson, were like the best at their position, which is pretty interesting. It never happens to the Jets like that. So I think that was terrific. I love the first pick. I wasn't a believer in it. I never thought they'd do it till the last month. And the more I read, the more I kind of liked it, especially with all the maneuvering with quarterbacks and wide receivers and the way the AFC East is really shaping up. The Garrett Wilson, I love. I mean, Ray knows I love all those Ohio State receivers. I would have loved Jameson Williams, but the way the Jets are, it's like you got to produce for us yesterday. I couldn't take a chance. I didn't want them to take a chance to wait till October, November. He might very well be ready opening day. I happen to think, and I mentioned before, in that injury, you have to recover physically and psychologically. And a lot of times, psychologically, it could take more than a year. Jermaine Johnson, I thought was a great pick. The only knock on him was like they were saying, like a 1-year wonder, but I think that was dispelled. I mean, he was a pretty dominating player. And what I like about him, he was a 3-down player. And hopefully he could give us 3 downs eventually. So I thought it was a home run. And Brees Hall, everything about him I like. The only thing I'm not sure of, and maybe you guys know, how is he as a pass blocker?
Yeah, that's the one question. I've heard some people say he's good. I've heard some people say he needs work. So that's something we'll have to find out actually when we watch him. But yeah, other than that, he checks every box. Marty,
that can be coached. I mean, that's something. It might take him a little bit of time, but I'm not sure Michael Carter was a great pass blocker at the beginning of last year, but he was on the field for pretty much everything by the end. So,
Marty, about this whole 1-year wonder nonsense. I hate that whole narrative because there are so many players that disprove it. Like TJ Watt, until his last year in college, never had a sack. Okay. Right. He was not bad in Georgia. I saw this great long interview he had with Chris Sims, Jermaine Johnson. He said he was, they were playing him at the Sam, and he felt that he had more to offer than that. And
tell the Jet Rewind fans, what is the Sam?
Well, it's a strong side backer, so he has to take on the tight end, and he's not getting any sacks or tackles for loss necessarily, and he felt that was his strength. It's an interesting thing, though. In his second year at Georgia, which was his second to last year, he and Trayvon Walker both played 7 games, and probably neither of them played every snap. And still, he managed to get 4 sacks, and Walker got 1. So he finds a way to produce. I'll tell you another interesting thing he said. Chris Sims asked him who the toughest lineman he went up against, and he says it was Icky. And he sort of like hesitated. He goes, "No, it was Andrew Thomas in practice at Georgia." He said, "I watched film on Icky, and I saw things I could do to him, So it was kind of interesting. And I'm thinking, wow, maybe it's good we didn't take Icky after all as an offensive tackle."
Right. Okay. And the Jeremy Ruckett I like better, I think, than both of you guys. I just love this guy. I thought he was underrated and underutilized as a receiver, which is obvious why, because, they're turning in, they're like Alabama. They're like a wide receiver machine. Know nothing about Max Mitchell. I saw he had a very good, I believe it was a run rating in PFF, very, very high. Okay, and Michael Clemens, I'm intrigued by it. He just sounds like a mean dude. I like having mean dudes on my team.
Yeah, he's intense, and that's what you want on your defensive ends. Yeah.
Hey, Ralph, I know this is a little bit late, but did you have a trivia question?
Yeah, I had a quick trivia question because they were almost did their 4 first rounders.
You ready, Ray?
Yeah, Ray, you're gonna get this one. The year they had 4 first rounders, they didn't have a second round pick, but they did have a 3rd round pick who turned out to be a good player. Do you remember who that was?
Yeah, I do. I forgot his name. The Lavernius Coles.
Right. Yeah. Who had baggage, by the way? Remember?
Yes, he did, which is why he dropped.
It's why he dropped, and it was never an issue because he grew up, and he became a good citizen.
Well, I'm not even sure he did what he got in trouble for. I think some people say he took the fall for what's his name was
Warwick Dunn?
Peter Warwick.
Warwick Dunn.
Who went to the Bengals at number 1 or 2 or 3 somewhere.
Yeah.
So
which is interesting.
I always loved
He was a really good Jet.
Yeah,
he was. All right, so Ralph, that's the trivia question. And
Yeah.
let me just read the undrafted free agents. And I wanted to ask you both, who's that receiver that was incredible from Clemson? Then he got hurt. What's his
Justin
name?
Ross.
Justin Ross. He still has not been signed.
No, something's very
So he didn't even
serious.
get picked. I didn't
Yeah.
even, I,
No,
I-
he
He
didn't.
hasn't been signed as a free agent yet, Ray. There's
Yeah.
something seriously wrong with him
something is
physically, I
wrong.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a shame, really.
Shea. He
So.
was some player when he was a freshman. Anyway, undrafted free agents. A safety from Illinois, Tony Adams, they signed. Kent State wide receiver. His name is Keyshawn Abram, I
Yeah,
guess.
spelled differently.
Yeah, and then they signed a defensive lineman from Coastal Carolina, C.J. Brewer. They signed a receiver. He went to Penn State, Irvin Charles, but actually he didn't play that much. They went to another school after that. And they signed, let's see.
EQ Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here's one for you, Ralph and Ray.
Yeah.
You love this. A wide receiver from North Carolina A&T, Ron Hunt.
Right, yeah. Tough
So
guy. If he's half as tough as Ron Hunt, the
Right.
baseball player, he'll
and
be
also
pretty
from
good.
North Carolina State, Zonovan Bam Knight, a
Yeah.
running back. And
He's
also,
anything
this
like
is,
Bam Cunningham. We're in good shape.
but he's not that big. And this is the
I didn't
one of
think
the
he was.
intriguing guys. And then Ralph has a little information on a couple of plays, but Middle Tennessee State linebacker DQ Thomas, which I love that name.
Right.
They
He's,
signed him, and what's
he's the
interesting,
heir to the Dairy Queen fortune.
they gave him 130,000
Yeah.
guaranteed.
So he's going to be around.
That shows that he was in some sort of in demand. So I
Yeah.
think he might make the squad. We'll have to see. Also, they signed Savion Williams. I don't know what position he is. He's from Florida A&M, defensive lineman.
Defensive, yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Exactly.
that's it. So, Ralph, could you, for our fans and for Ray
Well,
and myself, could you shed some light on?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the three I think that have the best chance of sticking are DQ Thomas. Obviously, they're giving him the money. Like I told you guys before we started the show, I just watched the clip of him picking off Malik Willis. It was a nice play. You know, he's a linebacker who's this like about 6'2", 215. That's Salas type of linebacker. And, you know, I think there are spots there to be taken. I mean, I apparently Salah probably still believes in Jamie and Sherwood and Nasruddin. As far as I'm concerned, if one of those guys makes it, I would be ecstatic, you know?
I just want to interrupt you, Ralph. I don't know if it's just me. I think they're going into this. I think they're overrating the linebacking situation.
Yeah, I have the
I
same
really
feeling.
do. I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but I think their linebacker is going to be awful unless they
Well,
do something I don't.
unless they find something, you know, I mean, what Douglas was saying the other day was what they keep an eye on now is teams that, like, say, drafted a linebacker and they know they have linebackers there and they don't want to pay them. So they keep an eye on that. And so he you know, they might be able to get something, but I agree with you. I don't think their linebackers are very strong right now, which is why I think this guy has a shot making the team. Bam Knight, which is his real name is Zonovan Bam Knight. He went to an NC State. You know, he's a typical size, 5'11", 215. He looks like a good runner. His measurables were not great, which is probably what cost him getting drafted, but we know that doesn't necessarily mean anything. He looks like he can play. Maybe he'll bump P. Ryan from the roster. I don't know.
Well, P. Ryan's not going to be back. No, that's a given.
He's like the cat came back, right?
Who's the other guy?
Well, Ty Johnson,
I don't think he's going to come back either.
yeah, well, because he's got the dropsies. And,
yeah, he had that 1.5 games where he was like Butterfingers. I never saw.
So yeah, so there's a shot for
Right.
Bam, whatever his name. Tony Adams thought he might get drafted. You know, he played alongside Kirby Joseph, who a lot of people mocked to the Jets. You know, he's a safety. He actually played cornerback this year at Illinois, but I think if the Jets if he makes the Jets, it would be as a safety. And he had some production his years in college, so we'll have to see on him too. That's about all I have
That's
right
it.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Ray, any thoughts on any of those guys or,
Well, the linebacker sounds kind of like, wasn't London Fletcher kind of undersized like that? So he sounds maybe like he's kind of like the mobile linebacker, like a London Fletcher or someone like that. But
Fletcher was even shorter,
yeah, he wasn't, but he
But
might
he's
have been
stockier,
more
yeah.
stout. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I mean, to me, when you're bringing them in as undrafted, then it's always a flyer. So if one sticks, even if it's a practice squad where we can develop them, that's fine. But nobody had me overly excited. But that might be a good point for me to. I told you guys I have a what if or
Yeah.
would you?
go ahead, why don't
question
you
for me.
ask, because then I have a couple of questions that came across. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, I was looking at, one of the things, I'm not upset with any of the draft, but I wouldn't have been upset either if he'd have traded those last two picks and moved back up into the third for somebody. And so I was looking at guys who went earlier in the third and the draft chart and comparing and what might have, and it depends on, there's also different draft charts. So everybody goes by different ones. There are three main ones they go by. And
The draft tech one I always find the most accurate, actually.
the Jimmy Johnson one is what a lot of people quote.
Yeah.
That had him the highest, but then there's one by a guy named Rich Hill, and then there's one called I think it's not actual value, but something like actual value chart or something like that. But and those two would have fit for the. Would you have traded those last two picks to move up a spot ahead of Philly and grab N'Kobe Dean? I would have. I think giving the guy a year to get better, to me, everything I read about the guy, I think he could be somebody who could be a difference maker. And you're talking about a stud in the third round.
I would have done it too. Every pick I was screaming his name, and look,
Yeah.
I know he may have been injured. He was like my favorite player.
It was never really, when would you have taken him, Marty? You weren't going to take him with the pick that you got the running back. And after that, they didn't have another pick until.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Rucker.
Those last two picks, if you traded up, you'd be one ahead of Philly.
He was picked in what, the fourth round or the third?
Third.
At 83.
What number from Philly?
83.
All right, so Ray is saying if you.
Yeah, I understand. So you're saying both those fourth round picks would have equaled that pick?
Both those last two picks, if you
Yeah.
put them together, would have not on the Jimmy Johnson chart, but on the other two would have put you at 82.
Let me just say this. Unless something came out or the medicals was so bad and so questionable, and like if he had like a Dwayne Robertson bone on two knees, it was something that we don't know about. But other than that, that guy is a tremendous ball player.
Well, by the way, Howie Roseman, they were talking on Sirius on the NFL Network as I was driving into work this morning, and he says he'll be ready to go at the start of training camp. So we'll see.
I heard Mekhi Becton was going to be out 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, I'm just saying, I've heard also, like Ralph said, that he'd be out for the year. So maybe he's not out for the whole year. Maybe he is. I mean, I don't know, but I'd still have made the trade even if he was out for a year.
So would I. Ralph, I don't think you would have, would you?
I don't know. I don't know. I might have.
Some of the guys make a fair point that
I'm just
how much is he did he benefit from that team he was on?
Well, some people actually had him slipping even before they knew about the injury because they felt he was undersized.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think he's a lock star, but I think, I think the Jets are going to have to address linebacker next year. Early.
Supposedly he'll be gone after this unless they
I wanted to bring up something quickly that I heard Salas say, which I found really revealing. I don't know if he regrets saying it or not, but he said that to what's her name, Janae Coakley, that if Atlanta had taken Wilson instead of London, they would have taken Jermaine Johnson at 10.
I heard that too.
Wow.
Which is fascinating.
It really is fascinating. To me, that's telling me that they would have taken
Hall would have been 26.
No, they would have taken him. No, I think they would have moved back up for a receiver the way the run on receivers was going in the first round.
Maybe.
So I don't know who they
would. That would have changed a lot of dynamics.
Everything.
Changed a lot,
But I like the thinking because I agree with him. I really like Wilson, and I was very hesitant about London. mainly because I just think that he's going to get beaten up very early in his career, the way he plays. I was surprised Atlanta took him after taking Pitts last year, who's a real big guy. I figured they'd go with a speed guy over the top. But thank goodness it worked out this way.
It worked out. It worked out well. All right, quickly, which drafted player do you think is going to have the biggest impact in the 2022 football season, the upcoming season? Ray, why don't you start, then Ralph, then I'll go. You can pick the same player, doesn't matter.
Right. Well, I want to say Wilson, but to me, part of the problem with that is our line going to hold up, and are we going to actually protect him and be able to do the stuff that the whole idea of drafting Wilson will allow us to do, which is a lot of the deep game and things that'll take a little protection back there for Zach to be able to make things. Now, he can do a lot of things. It doesn't all have to be long passes, but a lot of what makes him dynamic is that speed, and he's got to have time to get down the field. I think it's actually going to be Breece Hall. I really think he's going to, by the time the season's over, I won't be surprised if him and Michael Carter are pretty much splitting reps almost evenly. I like Michael Carter, but Breece Hall, because being the receiver that they talk about and everything, I think he could be and if his blocking is either improved or better than everybody's saying, then, he'll be on the field at big times and he can make a difference.
Ralph?
I think it's definitely going to be Breece Hall, and for a couple of reasons. One is because of the nature of the position. Running backs usually hit the ground running, no pun intended. They don't really have a transition in the NFL. Usually you get your best years out of your first three. And the other is that I just think he's extremely talented. And I think right off the bat, he's going to be the number one running back. I don't think Carter is. I think Carter will be his. And it's funny because he reminds me a little of Javonte Williams, Carter's running mate although I think this guy is a little more dangerous in space. They both
North Carolina, right?
Yeah. And he got picked around the same time, early second round. So I definitely feel like Breece Hall, because I know that the Jets' philosophy is going to be one, if we can establish the run, we're going to go with the run, which is fine with me because I think it's going to be a quarterback's best friend is having a good running game.
I think the same thing. I mean, I'm going to make it a sweep. I think it's Breece Hall. If you remember, hopefully it's not a trend, but Michael Carter got nipped up a couple of times. He sat out. I think he's a lot of fun. I think he's an asset to the team, but I think what Breece Hall gives to this organization and this team is really much better. And Ray, I'm sorry to say, I think they might be, you're going to see the snaps by the end of the year, unless one of them's injured. It's going to be mostly Breece Hall. That's what I'm thinking. I could be wrong.
If that's what works, I'm all for it.
And keep in mind too, and this year, everything falls on Zach Wilson's shoulders. There's no excuses this year. And he's going to use Breece Hall too as kind of like a safety valve, also running and passing. But really, with Breece Hall and with the tight ends, with the situation, and I know I'm digressing a little, I'm talking a little bit about Zach Wilson. I want your reaction too, but he should work wonders with the play action pass, especially to the tight ends too. So I expect a lot from Zach Wilson. And again, full disclosure, I wanted nothing to do with him after like 8 or 9 games, but I like what I saw the last 5 games. So Ray, how do you think this draft is going to affect Zach Wilson?
Well, I think, and it's kind of going back to Ralph's comment about they want to run the ball. I think it all comes down to the offensive line. Are they able to create some holes and let us run the ball? Are they able to protect Zach? And I like what we did in free agency with the line. I hope Max Mitchell becomes a good somebody who can back up pretty much anybody if needed. But that's going to always be my concern. Did we do enough to get the line shored up? I think it's going to be improved over last year, but then again, was Fant Fant had injury issues before, so is Fant going to hold up? Is Fant going to be solid like he was last year? Is Becton going to be on the field more than 2 or 3 plays? So there are a lot of question marks with the offensive line for me and how it'll perform. But I think if they do, create some holes for the runners and protect Zach, I think that that we can be very our offense could be very successful this year. So I'm optimistic.
Ralph, as we enter the fourth quarter, what's your feeling about how it's going to affect Zach Wilson?
Well, I agree with Ray that, the offensive line still makes me a little nervous because of Becton. I feel like they're going to get more. They're going to sign someone between now and then.
Yes.
They have to.
And I want to get into that as soon as you're done.
And I agree that, Wilson this year has got to lift his game a lot. But I keep hearing everyone say the Jets' success depends on Wilson. And, to me, the most important guy is Saleh. The head coach is everything. And we all love Saleh, but we don't know yet if he's a really good NFL coach. And we're going to find out a lot this year. Last year, he was a rookie, and we cut him some slack. This year, I'm hoping, I'm thinking, but if he is, then I think everything else will fall into place. He's such a nice guy and players love him so much. You worry about that. We had that issue with Pete Carroll. He was too buddy-buddy with the players. He seems to have fixed that whole thing at college at USC. But like I said, I think it's Saleh and Wilson and the offensive line. That's where the rubber meets the road, because they have so much else offensively. It's like cosmetic surgery Douglas did on this team this year. It's amazing.
I like Saleh. I like the fact that he recognized last year, starter from the year before. He probably went to Joe Douglas. He said, "We can't play with this Bless Austin. He's just not good. I don't know why they keep it." He's not afraid to do things to make the team better.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He wasn't afraid to come out and say, the competition is open now at left tackle. That's what I like about it. I know he's like a nice guy, but I think he's got a toughness about him. And when we were all screaming for Denzel Mims, he refused to play him, and it turns out he was right about that too.
Good. Those are good points.
Yeah. So I think I'm really happy with this guy, but you got to start winning games.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't win games, you could be the best coach in the world, whatever. You have to win games.
Yeah.
I'm going to be going nuts if they start out 0-3 or 0-4.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what their schedule is.
We're going to find out like in about 10 days.
But yeah, I mean, I think minimum of 7. I think we would.
I want 9. I want 9 games.
Well, I do too. But if they go 7-10 and they're not blown out in any games,
right.
They're playing competitive football. Right. I think that's a good step.
I'm trying to compare like Zach Wilson to Josh Allen, with the fact that Josh Allen had such a rough time his first year.
He wasn't great his second year either.
Made a little bit of a jump.
A little bit. Well, and I expect Wilson will too. If he doesn't, that's but he was nothing great his second year. And the third year was when
you really tell. Quickly, and we have a few minutes left. I agree with, I don't know if Ray said or you said, they're going to sign someone. I think they're going to sign a veteran offensive lineman, defensive lineman. I was looking at the list. I assume they're all still available. I'm just going to read 5 names and tell me who you like. Nate Soldier, 34 years old. Wayne Brown, 36 from Seattle. Brian Balaga, 33 from the Chargers. Eric Fisher. Chargers, Ralph. We got to stay away from those guys. Eric Fisher.
Yeah, they're good at getting rid of whoever.
Brian Balaga was once a very good football player. At least,
31 from Indianapolis. Darren Williams, I guess he's not signed. 29 from Buffalo. Out of those 5, who do you like?
What was the 4th one? I didn't catch.
Eric Fisher.
Eric Fisher. How old is he now?
31.
I don't know. I don't know what the health is of some of these guys. I know Fisher's had health problems. I'd be happy with either of the last 2 would probably be the most interesting ones
Williams
for me.
Fisher. I wouldn't mind Nate Soldier. I know he didn't do great.
Really?
with the,
He
yeah,
got
for the
torched.
34. What'd you say, Ray?
He got torched
He
last
did.
year.
He did. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe change the scenery. Who would you like, Ray?
Well, and again, it comes down to health. I'm not sure why Brian Bulaga is available other than maybe because I know he was out for a stretch. I kind of always liked him, but I'm not sure about his health either. But that would be the main one that I'd
Well,
look at.
I'll read the next five. Riley Riff, 33, Cincinnati. Marcus Cannon, 33 from Houston. Zach Banner, 28 from Pittsburgh. Here's one for you guys. 30 years old from Seattle, Brandon Shell.
Mm.
Would you sign him as a swing tackle?
If any of those
Tackle,
guys,
yeah,
I would
guard.
take any of them if they were healthy. I really would. We
You
need some
can't count him.
players.
McDermott was terrible. I was looking at his film
Yeah.
with the Bills game.
He's horrible. He
Three
can't play
sacks.
him at tackle. Not at all. You
Well,
have
that's
to
just
hide
it.
him at
I
guard.
don't. Are any of these guys tackles or are they guards?
They're tackles.
They're okay.
Yeah, now on defense, I'm going to name 5 names. Eric Goldman, 28, Chicago. Brandon Williams, 33, Baltimore. I can never pronounce his first name. Defensive tackle.
Okay.
Sue, defense at 35, Tampa Bay.
They're trying to re-sign him to Tampa
Yeah,
Bay.
Linville Joseph, 33, Chargers. Star Luke Leckie. I didn't even know who he is, Buffalo. Here's one that's interesting, 31 years old, Sheldon Richardson, but they would never sign him. I don't think the owner would sign him.
Well, I mean, he was not around with any of these guys. So, I mean, again, if he's healthy, I wouldn't mind having
I wouldn't
him.
mind signing him either. What about you, Ray?
Yeah, I mean, I think he still can make plays. I think he's still an effective
31, yeah.
run stopper. I don't know about getting
Time flies,
back,
huh?
but one of the free agents Tampa signed was Fadakasi's brother.
Right, from
maybe
Rutgers.
we should have made a run at him.
From Rutgers.
I like I said, Joe Douglas says there's going to be players popping up that are going to get dropped from
stuff.
teams. So
Yeah.
I feel like he understands that.
Right.
That he, did you hear Salas calling Becton and say, "Come on down. We want you to." Becton is just too erratic. You can't trust him.
You got to get someone. All right, we're going to.
Yeah, it's crazy because he's so young. I don't know why he's doing this to his career.
I never wanted him when I saw his father get off the couch.
Well, it was too late. That was too late.
For Ray Clifford, Roush Reagan, Marty Shupak, and Jets Rewind, check out our website. Until next time, go Jets.